Alright, happy Tuesday everybody. We've got a Glaze Fountain demo for you. If you haven't seen the Glaze Fountain, I'm going to show you everything about it today. I will be glazing just this cup over and over again. It's kind of my demo glaze cup. And I'll kind of walk you through how the Glaze Fountain works, how it might be of help to you, and if you're not aware, we do have a promo going on right now. So now's the time to jump on it. The glaze I'm using is it's a Mako green opal. Any glaze will work. It's going to be, right now I'm using this as a 2-gallon bucket. It will also work in a 5-gallon or a 10-gallon. It's really made to adapt to whatever bucket you're using. I like using the little 2-gallon just because this is something where, you know, you don't always have a big bucket of glaze, and it works great to just, I have a bunch of these at home. We have them here in the studio, and it's nice that this whole thing will fit and work with a small amount of glaze. Hard to hear. Hopefully this is working. I'll try talking closer to the mic. But I'm starting to just stirring this up. So this is sort of normal glazing. Oh no. Let me try replugging this in. If you can't hear me. Let's see, is that any better? Alright, I'm glad you're helping say it's not better. Alright, we're working on it. Alright, I'll ask Jamie, is that any better? Oh, she's checking. Okay. You're saying it's better, much better. Alright. Sometimes you just gotta unplug it and plug it back in. Cool, okay. We're back. So mix up your glaze. I've seen a lot of different things used. I like using a little toilet bowl scrubber. It works really well, and when you have all that gunk on the bottom, you'll be able to see it, but it also just kind of helps get into all the corners. And it's not like it's, a scraper. You're not going to scrape any plastic on accident. So make sure this is going. I just mix until I can tell there's no more chunks in there. So you guys know a lot of glaze will vary. Sometimes you will have really a lot of sediment that kind of hardens on the bottom, and you got to stir through that. We've made one improvement to the Glaze Fountain to kind of help it stick to the bottom of buckets. That's the biggest thing that we've heard back from customers is the suction cups will work really well as long as the bucket is smooth on the bottom, and depending on the amount of sediment that falls down in there, you might have a tough time letting it stick. So we've made one little improvement. If you have a Glaze Fountain, we're actually going to send it to you. But this one I've got stirred up pretty well. And so this is the Glaze Fountain. I have the cone attached to it. This is a little bracket that will hold it onto the bucket just to keep it stable. The deluxe version comes with the cone, and so I use it just with the stand-up tube, just like this. I don't put the nozzle on. The nozzle, you get quite a bit of force behind there. I don't always need that. You'd be surprised how well just this will work. There's an upright tube. This is sort of the main pump housing. We have the cable that comes out and goes to the foot pedal. In this case, the foot pedal will actually reach the ground. So if you do use a 2-gallon bucket like this, you can glaze up on a table, which is nice. Otherwise, you do have enough space with the foot pedal. This, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, on the side is a little rubber stopper. So when you pull that out, that's how you drain the Glaze Fountain. The biggest thing that we really spent a lot of time on is how to make sure you can clean this easily. Everyone knows glazing is messy. Whatever you get glaze on, it's tough to clean. So the key is when this is filled with glaze, you'll see me kind of cycle it. I'm going to pull this rubber plug out. That will allow all the glaze to drain from inside the pump in the tube everywhere. We can put it in the clean water and cycle that through. So that part I just leave twisted in there. One little secret, if you do have one, rather than trying to just push it in, give it a little twist and you'll feel it kind of tighten up in there. So that's important, that's the plug. Other than that, we just put it in, make sure your glaze is all mixed up. You will feel those suction cups stick right away, and just kind of gently rock it back and forth. Pushing really hard won't always kind of get them to stick. You kind of got to rock them, and it's kind of like when you want to get the air out of the suction cup. Right. This little bracket is something new, and so what we've done here, I'll move to this side, is it will just hook onto the side of your bucket, and then you push this up and it kind of clicks in place, and so that just helps the little bit of stability while you're pumping and moving, and if you bump it, so that's going to hold it on there. This little bracket, if you have a Glaze Fountain, again, we're going to send one to you, so stay tuned on that. And if you buy a Glaze Fountain, it's going to come with it. Again, the deluxe comes with the cone. You don't always need it, but I've found that it is really helpful. Almost everyone who buys a Glaze Fountain gets the cone. It's nice, especially when you are using the 2-gallon bucket. It kind of contains all that spray, all the drips and everything, and it gets it back into the bucket. So once it's in there, you can't see it, but I have the foot pedal down below me, and I'm just going to gently let it pump out. Don't stomp on the foot pedal. This thing, it has a lot of power. It'll shoot up. So just gently let it go, and you can see it start to bubble there. If I pull this down a little bit. So it's bubbling and it's coming out through the bottom around this little propeller thing, and it's going back down the tube into the bucket. So any extra glaze will go down there. The actual glazing part is probably the easiest. Put your piece over and press the foot pedal, and you get fully covered inside there. Drip. I do want to show you, I'm going to move this up a little bit just so you can see inside while I'm going. So, while you pump, this is just a very kind of gentle pushing of the foot pedal. You do get that little bubble coming up. If I put the piece over, so it'll cover the entire inside of this, no problem. It usually only takes a couple pumps. I usually do 2. There's plenty of glaze that comes up. If you have a much larger vase, it'll completely reach the inside of that vase. So power is not necessarily an issue here. There is a nozzle that comes with it. You can experiment with it. I found that I don't need the nozzle. This will get plenty of glaze coming out. If you do have a much larger piece, you can go ahead and try to use that nozzle. It'll shoot up quite a bit higher. But I found just the regular tube attachment works. We do have also a wand. Let me grab that for you. So we do have a wand that will attach to the top of the tube, and it will just dispense glaze. So if you got something very large, you want to try, rather than trying to dump or pour a bunch of glaze going around there, you can use the wand, pump it out, and it'll even drain back in here. So that's an option as well. And this is just a 1/2 inch NPT, so any other kind of plumbing or tubing that you want to use, it'll attach. It's very customizable from that standpoint. All right, so let's say you glaze. If you have multiple things to glaze, this will go very quick, so that's the main advantage of the Glaze Fountain. And then it comes time to clean it. The number one thing, so it helps to have a sponge. I have a bucket of clean water here. This is only filled up about halfway. That's about all you need. And then I just give a quick wipe to the top of the tube so I can grab it. And then release this. So once the suction cups are in there, will these be available in the UK? We actually do have a couple distributors in the UK. I am not sure if they're carrying Glaze Fountains, but we have shipped them over there. So check our website. You can see our distributor list, and then you can go to their website and see if they have them. But they are available. We can get them there. We can ship them there. So I'm pulling this up. Right now, this is all filled with glaze. And so this goes back to that little plug in the beginning I mentioned. Pull that out, and you're gonna see this all drains. And then you just want to gently press the pedal. And this is all the excess glaze that you gotta get out of there. And so this is really what allows you to not really waste a lot of glaze. It also helps clean a bit. Once it's empty, I tilt it back. You'll see it's empty in there. And then just plop her in the 5 gallon bucket. And then I also replace that little plug. Just like that. We'll move the foot pedal. So your glaze bucket you can close. That side. So now it's in clear water. I use that same little brush and just kind of scrub around, dunk it a couple times to get the inside, so there's still a little bit of glaze inside the pump up the tube. Just allow this to come up a little bit. You'll notice the first couple sort of bubbles will be pretty dense with glaze, and then you'll notice that water starting to get a little bit clearer. So just kind of cycle that through. It will really clean itself from the inside. And then I just give the inside of the cone a little wipe down. That cleans up nicely. And then just give one last little wipe to the inside. So here you can see this is the pump. It's almost all clean. The last part that I do like to get is, I'll set this down, is make sure to drain water out of there. I just do a couple more dunks, and then you'll see when I push the foot pedal, this will sort of depress down. Sometimes there's a little bit that will like to get stuck in there. That's where a little bit of a brush comes in handy. But other than that, it's surprising how well it cleans up. So that's about it. So this is clean, ready to go in your next glaze bucket. Dry that off. And then don't forget, replace your little plug. And that's it. So, you know, it's a minute, couple minutes on cleanup. It gets very clean, so I wipe down the cone, everything else. Glaze doesn't really stick to the bottom that much because it is settling. And yeah, everything else on top, you'd be surprised. A couple dunks in clean water, that'll get that all sort of washed off. Any other little nooks and crannies, it's usually like a little brush or a sponge, you'll get it clean. But otherwise it's ready to go. So you'd be surprised, you can really turn around, you know, move from one glaze to the next pretty quickly. And all you need is, you know, this is a 5 gallon bucket. At home I use another 2 gallon bucket of clean water, and that's all you really need to sort of give this a rinse. But that's it. So the store sitting up sometimes, just to sit there. But that's how you use the Glaze Fountain. So it's really simple, works with whatever bucket you have, and it's got a lot of sort of attachment options and customizable ways that you can set this up to glaze whatever you're glazing. So I use it for anything more than a few pieces. I find it worth it just to set it up, glaze the insides of stuff. almost less cleanup than having to deal with cups of glaze where you're then wasting it, you're dribbling it all over, and usually that ends up, if you know, everyone's familiar with the pouring out back into the glaze bucket, and it's a lot easier than that. You're less likely to sort of mess it up or get drips or something, so it's definitely worth it. Yeah, so I think that's kind of it on the Glaze Fountain. Keep in mind there's a promo going on. I believe it goes through this weekend. It ends October 13th, so Sunday. You still got some time. The code is Glaze20. So all caps, no spaces, Glaze20. It's 20% off either of the Glaze Fountains. And so I believe the Classic, that would get you down just below 200, which is a pretty good deal. So if you're interested or been eyeing it, now's a really good time to go for it. And again, if you already have one, we're going to be sending you a little bracket for the side to help if you're having any trouble with that. And yeah, no, thanks for joining, and hopefully this kind of gives you some information on how it works. So cool. And yeah, thanks for helping with the audio in the beginning. We're all set. All right, thank you, and we'll see you next week.